Hello everyone, welcome to Olive Board. My name is Dinkar Purwar, and again we have come here with one of the important lecture for important news of the week. And here we'll be discussing some of the important news that has happened last week. So let's start with the lecture. So we'll be starting with our first news of today, that is monoclonal antibody therapy. So this has been in news because of the high risk COVID-19 patients. So monoclonal antibodies are identical copies of any kind of antibodies that target one specific antigen. So this treatment has already been previously used in infections such as Ebola and HIV virus. So it can help in reducing the uses of the steroids and immunomodulation, which would further reduce the risk of fatal infection like micromucosis and secondary bacterial and viral infections. So in the monoclonal antibodies, that means here we are preparing identical copies of the antibodies that target one specific antigen. So this treatment has previously been used to treat the infections such as Ebola and HIV. So, because of this, as we all know that there are various other issues that are coming for the COVID-19 patient like black fungus and all those things. So, in order to reduce the risk of all these fatal infection like micromycosis, secondary bacterial infection, viral infection, so this antibody therapy is being suggested. Though this therapy is most suited for high risk COVID-19 patients. So those who are at a very high risk, this type of therapy is suggested to those people who are within the first 10 days of the symptoms onset and meet any of the listed criteria such as their age being 65 years or old. So in the exam they can ask you monoclonal antibody therapy means what. So you can they will give you options where they can ask you, are these the identical copies of the antibodies, or what is the function of them. So you can tell them this is the identical copies of an antibody. That clonal means cloning something. If you are making the same thing out of in a lab, so it is called cloning. Okay, that's why identical copies of an antibodies, it is like that. Now we move into the next news, that El Salvador create history and it has become the world first country to adopt the Bitcoin as the legal currency. So this is very important for your any kind of competitive exam, because this has become the first country in the world which has adopted Bitcoin as a legal currency. Now you can use Bitcoins or local currency in the same way as you are using. Okay, either in the you can pay in Bitcoin, also you can pay in the normal currency. So it will be like a normal currency. El Salvador is now officially the first country in the world to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender, and the exchange rate between the Bitcoin and the US dollar will be freely established by the market. Priced may be expressed in the Bitcoins. You can also make tax contribution and that can be paid in Bitcoins also, and exchange in Bitcoin will not do any kind of subject to capital gain tax, as they are just like any legal tender. All obligation in money expressed in US dollar existing before the effective date of this law may be paid in the Bitcoin. So all obligation in money expressed in US dollar that has been existing before also, before this law has come, you can also pay that in Bitcoins. Okay. This El Salvador will be building satellite infrastructure for its citizen in rural areas in order to connect them with the internet and the Bitcoin network, where the place has a very poor connectivity of the internet. So they are like a normal legal tender, and they will be building a proper satellite infrastructure so that they can have a proper internet connectivity throughout the rural area, so that people can do the transaction in the Bitcoins. So financial inclusion in the ethos behind the cryptocurrency. So why these cryptocurrency are being adopted by various countries? Because the major reason is financial inclusion. They wanted to make sure that everywhere the proper currency system, proper internet, people should not be just left behind because there is no proper financial inclusion and all these things. So that is why cryptocurrency is being seen as a type of financial inclusion, and introducing is in the system will help bank the unbanked in the developing countries like El Salvador. So because of that, if you are introducing this in your country in the system, so it will also help the unbanked area of any kind of country which are developing, that is El Salvador and other countries like this. As we all know that El Salvador has a GDP of around $27 billion, and as more of its people are adopting cryptocurrency, this will push more countries towards the crypto acceptance. Now, World Bank has projected Indian economy to grow at 8.3% in 2021 and by 7.5% in 2022. So the World Bank has projected Indian economy to grow by 8.3% in 2021 and 7.5% in 2022. Even at it recovery is being hampered because of the unprecedented second wave of the COVID-19, the largest outbreak in the world since the beginning of the deadly pandemic. So latest issue of the global economic prospects, latest issue that has been released under global economic prospect that has been released, noted that in India an enormous second wave, as you all know that a second wave of COVID-19 was already going, and that has sharpened that expected rebound in the activity seen during the second half of the fiscal, especially in the service sector. So in 2020, Indian economy is estimated to have contracted by 7.3%, while in 2019 it registered a growth rate of 4%. So there is a huge contraction in the GDP of our country because of the presence of the COVID-19 problem. So because of that, in a quarter, every World Bank, IMF, all these coming with a various type of GDP projection, and based on that, the GDP projection are coming up, sometimes coming down, sometimes. So that is why we are including all these news, because as you can see that there is a huge amount of discrepancies. Like sometimes they say that it will grow by this percent, it will grow by this percent, but it all depends on the future situation. Okay. Bank said that the global economy is set to expand by 5.6% in 2021, and it will be the strongest post-recession pace in 80 years. So activity will benefit from the policy support. So the government of the various countries has to provide various policy supports, including higher spending on the infrastructure. There should be a higher spending on infrastructure, rural development, health, and a stronger than expected recovery in the service and manufacturing. So if you wanted to the economies to rebound in the same pace, we wanted to have a various type of policy support that has to become, including higher spending on infrastructure has to be done, rural development has to go hand in hand, and at the same time health has to be taken care properly, because huge amount of GDP has gone in the health sector in the last 2 years, and the strongest than expected recoveries in the service and the manufacturing sector has to be taken. Now, Knight Frank Global House Price Index. So India has moved down by 12 spots in the Global Home Price Index to 55th rank in the Q1 of 2021 against 43rd rank in Q1 of 2020. So there is a decline of 1.6% year on year in home prices. So there is a decline of the home prices, and earlier India rank was 43 in 2020, and now it has moved to 55th rank in 2021. Turkey has lead the ranking for the annual price growth for the fifth consecutive quarter. So there is a huge increase in the rise of home price in the Turkey, and Turkey has maintained this position since 5 consecutive quarters. But stripe out any inflation and real price are rising at around 16% annually. So it is not because of the inflation, but because of the real price are rising at around 16% annually. So aside from the Turkey, the top 10 in largely comprise of the developed nation like New Zealand, then we have a US, then Sweden, Austria, and Canada. So the Global House Price Index tracks the movement and the mainstream residential prices across 56 countries and territories worldwide using the official statistics. Now, India slips to spot to rank 117 on Sustainable Development Goals. As we all know that we are following Sustainable Development Goals from 2015 to 2030. Okay, and before that there were Millennium Development Goals, which has started from 2000 to 2015. Okay, so for every 15 years. So earlier there were Millennium Development Goals, and now from 2015 Sustainable Development Goals has started, and India has slipped to spot to the rank of 117 on 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So total 17 goals are there. Under 17 goals there are total 169 sub goals are there. So India rank has slipped 2 places from the last year to 117 on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. that has been adopted as a part of 2030 agenda by 193 United Nations member in the state in 2015. India has slipped by 2 positions from the last year, and that has been adopted in 2015. A new report has said about this. The State of Indian Environment Report 2021 has revealed that India rank was 115 last year, and now it has dropped 2 places to 117 because of the major challenges. So some of the major challenges that India is not able to give due importance, like ending hunger and achieving food security, that is Sustainable Development Goal 2, then achieving gender equity, that is Sustainable Development Goal 5, and then building resilient infrastructure, promotive, inclusive and sustainable industrialization and fostering innovation, that is Sustainable Development Goal 9. It remains in the country. So these are all these goals under which India has not done that much progress. Okay, India has ranked below 4 South Asian countries. So India has ranked below 4 South Asian countries like Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. The overall sustainable development goal of score of India is 61.9 out of 100. And elaborating state-wise preparedness, the report said Jharkhand and Bihar are the least prepared. So as per this report, the Jharkhand and Bihar are the least prepared to meet any kind of sustainable development goals by 2030, or maybe they will be lagging behind in various other goals, which is the target year. While Jharkhand lags in 5 of the sustainable development goals, and Bihar is lagging in 7 sustainable development goals. So this is all about the report has said. So which is the best overall score of achieving? So some of the states that has achieved the good in this are Kerala, Himachal Pradesh and Chandigarh. So there are 17 sustainable development goals which are an urgent call for action by developed and developing countries as like a global partnership. So goal 1 is of no poverty, goal 2 is of no hunger, goal 3 is of good health and well-being, then we have a goal 4 of quality education, then we have a goal 5 of gender equity, goal 6 on clean water and sanitation, then goal 7 is on affordable and clean energy, then goal 8 is for decent work and economic growth, then after that goal 9 is industrial innovation and infrastructure. As you can see here, we have discussed goal 9 here in building resilient infrastructure and promoting inclusive and sustainable industrialization. So under which the major challenge that India is facing is sustainable development goal 2, then goal 5 and goal 9. So India is facing in goal 2, goal 5, goal 9. So under this India is lagging far behind. Okay, and then after that goal 10 is there, reducing the inequality. Then we have a goal 11 is of sustainable cities and communities. Then goal 12 is of responsible consumption and production. After that goal 13 is of climate action. Then goal 14 is of life below the water. Here we'll be looking for all the oceans and various other things, rivers and all those things. Then after that goal 15 is of life on land. Then after that peace and justice of the strong institution is the goal 16, and goal 17 is the partnership to achieve the goals. The report also said that India ranked 168 out of 180 countries in terms of environmental performance index. So this report has also said that as per environmental performance index, India is ranking 168 out of 180, which is calculated on various indicators including environmental health, climate, air, pollution, sanitation, drinking water, ecosystem services and biodiversity. So these are all the things are there. Total 17 goals are there, and India is lacking behind in the goal number 2, goal number 5 and goal number 9. Rest all things are based on the target, but India has to do much more for goal 2, zero hunger, goal 5 for gender equity, then goal 9 for industrial innovation and infrastructure. Now we move into the next news, that is global minimum tax. So finance ministers of the group of 7 countries that is rich nation has reached a landmark accord on backing the creation of a global minimum corporate taxes of at least 15% as an agreement that could then form the basis of the worldwide deal. So the total rich nation, like total 7 are there, okay, like G7 countries that we have Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK and United States are there. They have reached a global accord, landmark accord for fixing a global minimum corporate tax of at least 15%, and that is an agreement that could then form a basis of the worldwide deal. First of all, the agreement has to happen between them, and now they have come to a conclusion that okay, 15% of the minimum corporate tax, global minimum corporate tax, is okay for the company. So, major economies are aiming to discourage the multinational companies for shipping the profit. So, what is the issue? Why they are setting up this 15% goal is that because many big companies are there. They are shifting their profit into the country where there is a less tax on the profit. So they don't want to get the profit in the country where the tax is large. So if the tax is large over there, so they have to share more profit with that country. So that is why the big companies are shifting their tax revenue, shifting their profits to the countries where the taxes are low tax countries. So these are called low tax countries. So they open various shell companies where companies enter companies in order to avoid the large tax from the big countries, okay, regardless of where the sales are made. Increasingly, income from the intangible sources like drug patent, software, royalties, or intellectual properties have migrated for these jurisdictions, allowing the companies to avoid the paying higher taxes in the traditional home country. So these like drug patents, software, royalties, intellectual property. So whatever these are things, these are called intangible sources such as drug patent, software, royalties, intellectual property. So they wanted to make sure that these should get registered in the countries where there is a less tax on all these things. So they, because of this, they avoid paying higher taxes in the traditional home countries. So OECD, that is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, has been coordinating the tax negotiation among the 140 countries for a year on a rule for taxing the cross-border digital services and also to curb the tax-based erosion, including the global corporate minimum tax. For all this has been done. The global minimum tax rate would apply to the overseas profit. So the global minimum tax will be applying to the overseas profit. Government could still set whatever local corporate tax they wanted to, but if companies pay lower tax in any kind of particular country, then their home government could top up their tax to the minimum rate. So if any companies is paying the lower tax in any other countries, but their home country's government will top up their tax to the minimum rate and eliminating any kind of shifting of the profit. Okay, even if you are paying the less tax in the other countries, but based on that, your home country will top up their taxes to a minimum rate so that you cannot avoid any kind of shifting of profit. So this is about the global minimum tax. Now, Anup Chandra Pandey. Anup Chandra Pandey is a former UP cadre IAS officer, has been appointed as the election commissioner. Sushil Chandra is the CEC, that is Chief Election Commission, and Rajiv Kumar is the another election commissioner beside newly appointed Anup Chandra Pandey. Now, as you all know that we have one CEC, Chief Election Commissioner, and two election commissioners are there. So the CEC is our Sushil Chandra, and Rajiv Kumar is one election commissioner, and other that has been appointed is Anup Chandra Pandey. Pandey now is 62 years old and he will demit the office in 2024. As we all know that the next Lok Sabha election will be held around March 2024. So he will leave the office before that, that is on February 2024. So as per the age criteria guidance of the election commissioner, so based on the guiding principles of the election commissioner, the retirement age has been fixed for 65 years for election commissioner. So Pandey will be here for around 3 years in the pool body. Shri Anup Chandra Pandey has been a 1984 batch of IAS officer during the span of his 37 years in the Distinguished Government of India services. Shri Pandey has worked in various ministries and departments at the center and its state cadre of Uttar Pradesh. So Shri Pandey has keen interest in writing and has authored the book called Governance in Ancient India, which explore the evolution, nature, scope, function and all related aspects of the ancient India civil service from the Rig Veda period to 650 AD. So our Anup Chandra Pandey ji has written a book that has been titled named as Governance in Ancient India. So here he has discussed about the various aspects of ancient Indian civil service from the period of Rig Vedas to the period of 650 AD. So the new election commissioner has been appointed is Anup Chandra Pandey. So you should know all the three people. First is this, he is chief election commissioner. Then we have Rajiv Kumar, he is CEC and he is election commissioner, and also Anup Chandra Pandey is also one election commissioner. Now, corporate. The 31st edition of Indian Thailand Coordinated Patrol, that is Indo-Thai Corporate Coordinated Patrol between Indian Navy and the Royal Thai Navy, that has been conducted from 9th June to 11th June 2021. So Indian naval ship INS Surya, an indigenously built naval offshore patrol vehicle, and His Majesty Thailand ship STMS Karbi, an offshore patrol vehicle, along with Dornier maritime patrol aircraft from both navies, are participating in the corporate towards reinforcing maritime links between the two countries, and with the aim of keeping this vital part of the Indian Ocean safe and secure for international trade. The two navies has been undergoing the corporate biannually, so it is a biannually exercise of along the international maritime boundary line since 2005. Corporate builds up understanding and interoperability between the navies and facilities institution of measure to prevent and surpass unlawful activities. So these type of activities are taken by various navies in order to make sure that there should be no unlawful activities like illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing, drug trafficking, maritime terrorism, armed robbery, and piracy. So because of these, all these exercises keep on happening. It further help enhance the operational synergy by exchange of information. So there is also a exchange of information for preventing of smuggling, illegal immigration, and for conduct of SAR operation at sea. And as a part of Government of India vision, so Government of India has also a vision of Sagar, that is security and growth for all in the region. The Indian Navy has been proactively engaged with the countries in the Indian Ocean region. So as per Indian government, Sagar, the Indian Navy is proactively are engaging in the various countries in the Indian Ocean region towards enhancing the regional maritime security, and they have also built bilateral and multilateral exercises, coordinated patrol, joint economic exclusive economic zone surveillance, and humanitarian assistance during the disaster relief operations. The Indian Navy and Royal Thai Navy has especially enjoyed a close and friendly relation covering a wide spectrum of activities and interaction, which have strengthened over the years. Now, QS World University Ranking 2022. So, three Indian universities has come under the top 200 position in the QS World University Ranking of 2022. Three Indian universities have achieved top 200 position in the QS World University ranking. IISc Bangalore has ranked number 1 in the world for the research. So QS Global Higher Education NSS has released last week the 18th edition of the World International Universities ranking. IIT Bombay has secured 177 position. IIT Delhi has secured the 185 position, and IISc Bangalore has secured 186 position in the university ranking. But as per the research, word for research, IISc Bangalore has been ranked at number 1. That's as per QS World University ranking. Now we are moving to the next news, that is novel technique that has been developed to detect tropical cyclone for Bay of Bengal basin earlier than a satellite. As we all know that we depend on our satellite data for the information on various tropical cyclones that happens over Bay of Bengal or Arabian Sea. As we all know that Taute and all these things of tropical cyclone developed every year in our Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. So there has been a new technology that has been developed in order to detect all these tropical cyclone during the starting stage of that. Okay, so before satellite can detect that, so this novel technique can detect them during the starting stage only. Indian scientists have found a promising technique for early detection of development of strengthening of the tropical cyclone in the atmospheric column prior to the satellite detection over ocean surface in the North Indian Ocean. Earlier detection of the tropical cyclone has a wide, So this early detection has a very wide social economic implication. So if we know any kind of tropical cyclone is forming, so we can take precautionary measure before a few days only, because if we come to know that in 2 hour, in for 24 hour, in 1 hour it is coming, if early detection is possible, we can do proper precautionary measure which can be taken in very advanced. So far, remote sensing techniques have been detected them at the earliest. So earlier, these remote sensing satellites are detecting them at the earliest. The largest time gap between the detection and the impact of the cyclone could have preparation activities. So if we get a larger time gap, so we can have, it will help in our preparation, various type of preparation activities. A team of scientists that has been including like Jia Albert, Vishnupriya Sahu and Prasad K. Bhaskaran from IIT Kharagpur, and they have got a support from Department of Science and Technology, Government of India under the Climate Change Program. They have devised a novel method that is called eddy detection technique. That is called eddy detection technique to investigate the formative stage. So here they will be investigating the formative stage and advanced detection time of the tropical cyclogenes in the North Indian Ocean region. The method has developed by the scientists with aim to identify the initial traces. So this method has been developed in order to identify at the initial traces of pre-cyclone eddy vortex in the atmosphere column and track its spatio-temporal evolution. The study was conducted with cases of 4 post-monsoon severe cyclones. So this whole study has been conducted by looking at the post-monsoon severe cyclone, like earlier that Phylin has come in 2013, Varda in 2013, Gaza in 2018, Madi in 2013, and 2 pre-monsoon cyclone of Mura and Ayla of 2019 that has developed over North Indian Ocean. So based on that, they have come out with a novel technique that is called eddy detection technique. What is the name? Eddy detection technique. So if they ask you what is the meaning of eddy detection technique, you can tell them that eddy detection technique is to find out the formative stage during the tropical cyclone in the Indian Ocean, North Indian Ocean region. So the team has observed that the method could bring about the genesis of prediction with a minimum of 4 days. So it can tell you minimum 4 days, that is 90-hour time for the cyclone developed during the pre and post monsoon season. So this is all about our eddy detection technique for detection of the tropical cyclones. Now, Cabinet approves allotment of 5 megahertz spectrum in 700 megahertz band to Indian Railway. So, Union Cabinet that has been chaired by Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi ji has approved the proposal for allotment of 5 megahertz spectrum in the 700 megahertz frequency band to the Indian Railways for public safety security service at all station and trains. So with this spectrum, what will happen is that Indian Railway has envisaged to provide LTE, long-term evolution based mobile train radio communication on its route. So based on this spectrum, Indian Railway will be provided with LTE, that is long-term evolution based mobile train radio communication on its route. If you know that sometimes in your mobile phone you can see something is a volte LTE, and sometimes it is coming as LTE. So in the mobile you can see that these type of words are coming in the top for checking the internet. So volte refers to voice over long term evolution, and this is called long term evolution. Okay, this is the latest technique, and this is just the previous techniques of that. Okay, so with this spectrum, Indian Railway will be provided with the LTE based mobile train radio communication on its route, and the estimated investment in this whole process will be coming out to be rupees 25,000 crore, and this whole project will be completed in the next 5 years. Indian Railway has also approved TCAS, that is Train Collision Avoidance System, and indigenously developed automatic train protection system which will help in avoiding train collision, thereby reducing accident and ensuring the passengers' safety. So, Indian Railway has also approved this two things, that is TCAS, that is Train Collision Avoiding System, and indigenously developed automatic train protection system, which will help in avoiding train collision, thereby reducing any kind of accident and ensuring the passenger safety. It brings a strategic shift in the railways operation. So because of this whole techniques, there will be a strategic shift in the railways operation and maintenance of the regime. It will help in improving the safety and increasing the line capacity to accommodate more trains. So because of these techniques that we have discussed today, so there in that whole track we can accommodate more trains. Now in the this whole track we can accommodate more trains based on this train collision avoidance system and automatic train protection system, because each train will be knowing at which distance they are traveling from the other train. So because of that, this is all automatic procedure. So using the existing infrastructure, the modern rail network will result in the reduction in the transportation cost, and there will be also higher efficiency. So at every place the train don't have to stop in order to make sure that the other train can pass. So because of this train avoidance collision system, all these things, it will help in reducing the transportation cost, and it will also rest to higher efficiency. No train has to wait, and no train has to go at a very large distance in order to avoid any kind of collision. So it will also enhance the efficiency of the railway. Also it will attract the multinational industries. So because of this whole new electronization and all these things, it will attract the multinational industry to set up manufacturing units. So they will set up manufacturing units to fulfill the Make in India mission and generate the employment in this whole sector. The purpose of LTE, that is long term evolution for Indian Railway, is to provide a secure and reliable voice, video and data communication service for operational safety and security application. Okay, so it will be used for modern signaling. So it will be used for modern signaling and train protection system, and ensure the seamless communication between the local pilot. So it will have a proper communication that will happen between local pilots and the guards. It will also enable Internet of Things, which is a new technology based remote access monitoring, especially on coaches, wagons, and locos, and live video feed on the CCTV camera in the train coaches, that will ensure efficiency, safer and faster train operation. So all these things will be provided like this. Now we are moving to the next news, that is discovered a small field. Discovered a small field has been bid round for round 3 for international competitive bidding was launched. So government of India has launched the discovered small field policy in 2015, which was a monumental step for awarding the discovered arcages and monetize the unmonetized discoveries. The DSF policy has multiple attractive features like revenue sharing. So here with the discovered small field, you will have a proper revenue sharing contract model. Here will be low regulatory burden, and there will be no minimum biddable work program, no prior technique qualification required, no upfront signature or bonus will be required. So the major aim of this is discovered a small field is to production at the earliest and to enhance the domestic production. So here the major objective of discovered small field is to production start at the very early stage, and also to increase the domestic production in our country. So discovered small field. Now Shri Justice Sanjay Yadav appointed as the Chief Justice of Allahabad High Court. So you should know this as a static question. The President of India, in exercise of the power conferred by the Clause 1 of Article 217 of the Constitution of India, has appointed Shri Justice Sanjay Yadav, he was the Judge of High Court, to be the Chief Justice of Allahabad High Court. That will be effect from the date he assumed the charge of the office. So who has been appointed as the Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court? He is Justice Sanjay Yadav. Okay, under the President of India, under the Article 217 of the Constitution of India, has appointed Shri Justice Sanjay Yadav as the Chief Justice of Allahabad High Court. Now All India Survey on Higher Education AIS SECHI 2019-20. So Union Minister, Education Minister Shri Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank announced the release of the report of All India Survey on Higher Education. So he has released a report on All India Survey on Higher Education of 2019-2020, and this reports provide the key performance indicator in the current status of the higher education in the country. In the last 5 years, from 2015-16 to 2019-20, there has been a growth of 11.4%. So in the last 5 years, there has been a growth of 11.4% in the student enrollment. So this is a very good number. And the female enrollment in higher education was around 18.2%. So there is a rise of female enrollment of 18.2%. He also emphasized that the continuous focus has been given by the government under the leadership of Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi on education of the girls. So various schemes has been launched for the government for education of the girls, women empowerment of socially backward classes, as well reflected by the increased participation of the women. So there is a government of India under Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi has released various girls related schemes, women empowerment related schemes. Socially, they have given various schemes for the socially empowered backward classes of the people, and especially focus on ST population, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe population in higher education. So what are the key features of All India Survey on Higher Education reports? The total enrollment in the higher education is stood at 3.85 crore. Okay, as compared to 3.75 crore in 2018-19. So there is a registered growth of 11.36 lakhs, like is 3.04%, like that. Gross enrollment ratio is that a percentage of a student belonging to the eligible age group that is enrolled in the higher education. In 20, it was 27.1% against 26.3% in 2018 and 24.3%. So there is a continuous increase in the gross enrollment ratio also. Earlier it was 24.3%, now it has come to 26%. In 2019 it is 27%. So this is a good number. Gender parity index, that is 1.01 against 1.0 in 2018-19, indicated improvement in the relative access to the higher education of females of eligible group as compared to the male. So in the gender parity index, it shows that how easily the education is accessible by females and the males in our country. Now, people teacher ratio in higher education of 2019-20 is around 26. The number of students who are pursuing PhD is 2.03 lakhs, that is against 1.17 lakhs. So it is a very good number in 5 years. From 1.17 it has raised to 2.03%. The total number of teachers stand at around 15 lakh. So I'm not reading the full number. So there are around 57.5% male teacher and 42.5% as a female teacher. Now we move into the next news. Gentleman cadet from Bhutan has been awarded the prestigious motivational trophy. So this is the time in which a gentleman cadet from the Bhutan has got the prestigious motivational trophy. As we all know that our Indian Military Academy gave training to various other countries, army officers also who are in the starting stage of their army induction. So in that, the gentleman cadet of Bhutan has been awarded the prestigious motivational trophy. So ceremony at the IMA Dehradun on 9 June 2021, junior under officer Kinle Norbu. He is a foreign gentleman cadet from the Kingdom of Bhutan, was awarded the prestigious motivational trophy for his excellent all-round performance during his training at the academy. So foreign gentleman cadet was ejected to receive the prestigious motivational trophy since he has won the best in the physical training, best in turnaround and best in the drill award among the gentleman cadet who have successfully completed their training. So junior under officer Kinle Norbu is getting commissioned into the Royal Bhutan Army and is a part of 84 FGC from 9 foreign countries who are due to pass out after completion of the pre-commission training at the Indian Military Academy on 12 June 2021. So this special award of recognition was also presented to FGC Ehsanullah Sadat from Afghanistan on being ejected as the best in service subject outdoor exercise and book review among the foreign gentlemen cadets. Okay. The IMA commands greater respect across the world armies as because various other countries send their gentlemen cadet to Indian Military Academy for the training purposes. Because Indian Military Academy is having a great respect across the world armies for its exacting training standards. Huge training, good, best quality training standards are there in India. Okay, every fourth gentleman cadet in the academy is from the foreign army. So as you can see the number, every fourth gentleman cadet in the academy is from the foreign army. The award reflects the pride which IMA takes in its assessment and award policy for excelling the gentleman cadet for passing out the courses irrespective of their nationality. So whatever their nationality is, that our Indian Military Academy takes care of everything, and based on that they try to give this award of prestige and motivational trophy. Okay, so IMA takes in its assessment and award policy for excelling gentleman cadet from wherever country they belong. They can get it to the Indian people, they can get to the Afghanistan people, they can get it to the Bhutan people and other countries, those who are participating in this training. These inspire the gentleman cadet to complete and inculcate the spirit of winning. Now, United Nations Development Report laud aspirational district program. So UNDP of India has lauded the aspirational district programs of India like as a very successful model of a local area development that should serve as a best practice among the several other countries where regional disparities are there in various other places. The report said due to the concerned effect that is made under aspirational district program that has been previously neglected district, including those in the remote location also and those that are affected by the left-wing extremism. They have experienced the more growth and development in the last 3 years even before. The report is based on the quantitative analysis of the publicly available data. So these are all the reports that has been based on the various quantitative analysis that has been done on publicly available data with various stakeholders, district magistrate, central Prabhari officer, district fellows, other development officers. So UNDP has analyzed the 5 key sectors of the aspirational district program, that is health and nutrition, education, agriculture and water resources, basic infrastructure and skill development and financial inclusion. And they have founded that UNDP India has finally found out that this program has acted as a catalyst. So this program has acted as a catalyst for expediting the development in these districts. So according to the report, the district have also admitted that the continued focus of program on health and nutrition has helped them in tracking the COVID-19 crisis with great resilience. So this report has also given the importance that because of the focus on health and nutrition, these districts are able to avoid the COVID crisis with greater resilience. For example, in Malkangiri district in the Odisha, which is located in the close proximity in the state of Chhattisgarh and Andhra Pradesh, has become the entry point for several migrant workers that they are returning from the lockdown. The district official has claimed that to have their new infrastructure, so these district people have made the new infrastructure to serve as the institutional quarantine center for all these migrant peoples. Monitoring the real-time data, convergence across the global program and schemes, and receiving the benefit of the aspirational district program by substantial margins have been credited, and the reason behind the success of the initiative is that. So there are 3 C's are there. That is convergence, competition and collaboration is the approach of the aspirational district program that emphasize on the importance of convergence, that foster moving away from the working in silos. Silos means you are working in your own places that you don't know about here and there. Okay. And towards synchronizing of the proper planning and the governance and to achieve the target of the program. The program has strengthened the technical and administrative capacity of the district also. The report recommends several initiatives. The report has recommended several initiatives undertaking under the program as best practices. Noteworthy among them are the goal mark. So this report has also taken care of the various initiatives that has been taken It is the Gold Mart. It is like an e-commerce platform that has been launched by the Assam Golapurhat District Administration. Here they are promoting the rural, ethnic and agrarian products in the district, in the national and the global market. So UNDP has lauded the Special District Program because it acts as a catalyst for all these districts. The report also said that it aligned with the principle of leave no behind. Nobody has to be left behind. This is the vital core of sustainable development goals that we have already discussed in the previous slides. The Aspirational District Program was launched by Pradhan Mantri in 2018 as a part of the government effort to raise the living standards of the citizen and also ensure the inclusive growth for all, like Sabka Saath and Sabka Vikas. About the Aspirational District Program that has been launched by Honorable PM, the transformation of Aspirational District. The program has been aiming to quickly and effectively transform these districts. Quickly and effectively transforming these districts. The broad contour of the program are convergence, collaboration, and competition among the various districts in order to act as a mass movement. With states as the main drivers, this program will focus on strengthening of the East District, identify low-hanging fruits for immediate improvements, and also measure the proper progress and rank the district based on all these things. Now, CARE rating. CARE rating, employment growth suffered even before COVID-19 pandemic, CARE rating has said. CARE rating has found that by between 2016-17 and 2019-20, the headcount 2,723 listed company has increased by only 2.2% as a compounded annual growth rate (CAGR). So this pandemic has hit hard to employment opportunities, very hard, and found that even in the pre-pandemic level also growth in the employment is lagging far behind. Okay, the interesting fact during this period is that real GDP growth, that is compounded annual growth rate, which supports the view that growth in the economy did not lead to the commensurate growth in the employment. So this shows that growth in the economy has not led to the growth in the employments. Higher use of technologies and increased productivity could have the reason behind this deviation. Okay, so more technology you are using, more mechanization you are using, so because of that employment are not rising. And because this is the this could be the reason for this deviation and hence can be attributed to the total factor productivity. CARE rating has used data from annual reports of this company to arrive at the headcount numbers. Forest reserve crossed $600 billion mark for the first time. So for the first time in the history, our forest reserve has crossed $600 billion mark. Now it has come to the 605 billion in the reporting last week. That has helped the rise in the foreign currency asset is a major component of the overall reserve as per the weekly data that has been released by the Reserve Bank of India. The country foreign exchange reserve crossed 600 billion mark for the first time after increasing by $6.842 billion that was ended by June 4th. This all term is expressed in the dollar term. The foreign currency assets are including the effect of the appreciation or depreciation of the non-US unit like euro, pound, yen, and also foreign currency and the foreign exchange reserve. So gold reserve has been declined to $502 million and now it has stand to 37.642 billion. The special drawing right, that is SDR, within the IMF has dipped by $1 million. Now it has stand to 1.513 billion. Now, ICRA projects GDP growth at 8.5% in financial year 2022. So, with the decline in the number of cases in COVID-19 cases and easing of the restriction, the company GDP will grow by 8.5% as per ICRA rating, that is Investment Information Credit Rating Agency. It also said if vaccine coverage is accelerated following the re-centralized procurement policy, the GDP expansion may be as high as 9.5% with the widening upside in Q3 and Q4 of financial year 2022. The rating agency expects a prolonged negative impact of the second wave. So this ICRA is expecting that there will be a prolonged negative impact of the second wave on the consumer sentiments and the demands within healthcare and fuel expenses eating into the disposable incomes. Now, performance grading index. So, government has introduced a performance grading index with a set of 70 parameters to catalyze the transformation change in the field of school education. So, performance grading index of the states and the union territory was first published in 2019 with reference to year 2017-18. The PGI is the third publication in this whole series. The PGI exercise envisaged that the index would propel states and the union territory towards undertaking multi-pronged intervention that will bring about much desired optimal education outcomes. The PGI also helps the state union territories in order to pinpoint the gap and accordingly prioritize the area for intervention to ensure that the school education system is robust at every level. So all these things are there in the performance grading index, how you can do. Punjab, Chandigarh, Tamil Nadu, Andaman and Nicobar Island, Kerala occupy the highest grade, that is grade A++ for 2019 and 20. And most of the states and union territory have approved their grade in the PGI in 2019-2020 as compared to the last year. So if somebody asks you what is the performance grading index is related to which field, so you can say that performance grading is related to the in the field of education. Now we are moving to the last news of today, that is new wastewater treatment technology. So as we all know that everywhere at every places huge kind of water waste are coming from the automobile servicing industry, food industries and various other low medium scale enterprises that can help a smart. So it will help smart and affordable electric field assisted membrane separation. So this new technique will be using a smart, affordable electric field assisted membrane separation device at their disposal for oily waste water treatment. So this is all for oily waste water treatment. Low income group, usually more, cannot afford the high cost treatment of the technology that is available for handling oil wastewater at the opening of the source point. So as we all know that low income companies are there who cannot handle the oily wastewater at the source point, so they simply just release it into the untreated, they just simply release that untreated wastewater into the aquatic bodies, and this is without just following any kind of guidelines that has been given by the Pollution Control Board. So this whole technology is developed by the Chiranjeev Bhattacharya. He is a professor at the Chemical Engineering Department in the Jadavpur University in Kolkata. Uses a combination of electrocoagulation and electroflotation enhanced membrane module techniques for wastewater treatment. So electrocoagulation is the wastewater treatment technique that uses electrical charges for changing the particle surface charge, allowing suspended matter to form the aggregate. And electroflotation is the separation of the suspended particles from water using the hydrogen and oxygen bubble generated by passing the electricity through the water. So in this whole technique, two things will be used, that is electrocoagulation and electroflotation. So here in the electrocoagulation is the wastewater treatment technique that use electrical charges for changing the particle surface charge, and electroflotation is the separation of the suspended particle from the water using the hydrogen and oxygen bubble that has been generated by the passing electricity through the water. So in the developed module, this electrocoagulation and electroflotation are adjoined. They are all adjoined together, and this is how the whole working will be functioning over there. So there is no need to understand the functioning. You just understand that electrocoagulation, electrofloation is related to the oily wastewater treatment. The innovation being an economically feasible wastewater treatment technology, both in terms of capital and recurring investment for low scale and medium enterprises, and has a good market potential. Moreover, unlike other conventional treatments, it can break the highly stable water emulsion through electrical discharge and simultaneously separate oil from the water with high efficiency. This technology developed with support from this whole technology has been developed with the support of Advanced Manufacturing Technology Program of the Department of Science and Technology, and requires minimal manpower. It requires a minimum manpower and does not need high-end technical accuracy for its operation, thus reducing the operational expenses. And whatever the recovered spent oil, that means after clearing the oil from the water, whatever this oil has been recovered from the wastewater treatment, it can be further used in the industrial burner, furnace oil, mold oils, and hydraulic oils. So this is was the last news. At last, I would like to say, guys, never forget to like, subscribe, and follow our channel. Happy learning. Thank you everyone for listening this lecture so patiently. I hope you got all the important news of the last week, and please go through all the important lectures. I have already taken last 10 lectures because there I have discussed all the important news of the various week. So in the next week we'll be coming with a new important lecture 12 on the important news of the week. Till then, bye bye, take care.